Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. So this is a follow-up to my last build video where I showed you how to take down the normal version of Omega using the Rebel Cannon spread ammo light bowgun. But this time we're stepping up by using against Savage Omega. So the build is slightly different and there's some slight enhancement to make it better, but it's going to be the same thing. But the difference between the normal hunt for Omega and the Savage Omega version is the margin of error. And what I mean by that is you almost have to play the hunt perfectly to win it. So in the normal fight, the strategy was really simple. We talked about how you need to avoid Omega whenever he's locked onto you and punish him whenever he's locked onto someone else. That tactic alone could allow you to farm the normal version of Omega in 20 minutes and you don't even need real human teammates. You can just use your NPCs. But the Savage Omega version is it's basically a completely different story. And here it's not just about the build, it's about your playstyle and the decisions you make at every moment of the hunt. And that's why this video is giving you a full walkthrough where you'll see how the hunt is going to go down. You're going to see the clear fight without a single death on my end. But even though I don't die once in the hunt, it was still a very close call. And you're going to see how tight the margin of error is in this hunt. But this video is going to basically reduce a lot of anxiety for you because I've already done all the homework and all the labbing, and I've been able to basically dissect the hunt and pick out all the parts that you need to be able to optimize. So you can just study the video and then just execute it on your own. Alright, so with that being said, let's go to the table of contents so you know exactly what to expect in this video. So if you just want to jump down straight to the equipment and decorations, there's a timestamp down below, but honestly, I don't recommend skipping ahead because I'm going to be showing you how to farm Savage Omega, and it's not really just about the build, it's about how you perfectly hunt him and make all the small decisions. So I really suggest watching the playstyle guide because I'm going to be giving you an in-depth breakdown of how to use this exact build to succeed against Savage Omega. So you can just save yourself the headache because I've already done all of the homework. You just need to copy my work. Alright, so our team structure is made of 3 players, an insect glaive, a hunting horn, and a light bowgun user, which is us, and we're the main damage dealer. So our job is simple because we deal as much damage as possible without dying. That way our teammates who are most likely to get carded have more breathing room. So that means that there's a lot of pressure on you in this role, but if you need practice, I recommend running the same build against a normal version of Omega with NPCs. So our hunting horn player sets the foundation of the fight by giving us buffs and then fires off the SOS flare to give us an extra NPC ally who actually plays one of the most important roles in the hunt. So now that if you haven't already, I recommend watching the normal Omega guide first because a lot of the fundamentals from that fight are the foundation for the Savage Omega walkthrough. So another thing as well is that at the start of the hunt, our priority is simple, and it's that we need to stack as many buffs as possible. And the reason why is because even in like the clip that you're about to see right now, I get hit by Omega and I almost die, and the only reason I didn't die is because of the 3 defense buffs that I have up. So that's how slim the margin of error is for this kind of hunt. So don't let something as preventable as this end your life. You know, just take your vitamins, get your buffs because they make a huge difference in this hunt and everything counts. Alright, so the very first thing you should do in the fight is start with the palm motif on Omega immediately, because when you first approach him, he takes a few seconds before becoming aggressive, which gives us the perfect opening to land it. And here's the key thing about Savage Omega runs. It's just that over time, you'll start noticing the small habits that add up that lead to guaranteed damage. And these little optimizations lead to more damage, cleaner positioning, and overall better results. So what makes this hunt so hard is how perfectly you have to play this hunt. It's like basically having to stack a bunch of Jenga. One mistake can crash the whole thing. So consistency is very important and building good habits is very important. So that's why even something as innocuous as this is very important. You should do this with every hunt. Now after landing the palm motif, the next step is to create some distance and immediately enter into rapid fire mode. And this is where the fight truly begins since our support hunters have finally joined the field. And Omega's first move is basically usually to use his rocket punch. And the key here is to position yourself so that you can line up your shots where you're hitting Omega and shooting down the rocket fist at the same time. And this kind of habit is really crucial because if you let the rockets hit you, you lose DPS and precious time because now you have to heal as well. And you know, with the Savage Omega hunts, this is extremely dangerous, so just don't get hit by these. And later on, these may be able to one-shot you. So make this like a consistent second habit. The first one was the motif at the start of the hunt. Always do that. And the second is make sure that you are always lining up your shots to hit the rocket fist and hit Omega at the same time. Next, after the rocket punch, Omega often follows up with his flamethrower, and we're able to dodge this by using light bowgun slide move. And this is honestly a very crucial thing for our DPS because it lets us weave in and out of our Omega's attacks while staying aggressive. And also the main thing I really want to emphasize in this clip is the slide in particular because it's one of the best defensive tools you can get because it comes out fast, it covers a lot of distance, especially because we're using evade window or evade extender. And this build, it basically doubles as a reload thanks to Rebel Stopper's equipment skill effect, where whenever you roll, it basically restores 1 bullet in your chamber. So let's talk more about the slide. So here's how it works. So first you sidestep and then you can slide. So the sidestep is a micro spacing tool that lets you reposition slightly after every shot. So in the previous video, I had a tutorial of how you can do this shot even whenever you're not in rapid fire mode. So you can basically skip burst step and get this really amazing safe micro spacing movement that can also help you dodge and lead to like slides. So anyways, so the slide on the other hand gives you like the burst distance that you need to be able to get out of tough situations. So notice that in the angle, like in the clip, the angle that I'm sliding at. So I'm moving sideways, so I'm still in position to close the gap on Omega if I want to get aggressive and an opening happens, but I'm also outside of his immediate threat range. The balance, like that kind of balance is key. And this is why even in this current update, light bowgun is outperforming heavy bowgun because of its mobility. The slide is both an offensive and defensive tool, and mastering is essential for this matchup and any other matchup with light bowgun. And on top of that, I do want to mention a concept called threat range. So threat range is basically like, you know, which of Omega's attacks are you in range of, you know, given the distance between you and him. So technically, you are always in Omega's threat range because he has moves like charge attack and he has all these projectiles that can get to you instantly. But the goal is to avoid being in the range of all of his tools at once. Sliding positioning helps you manage this, which means you're going to have more consistent DPS. So at this point, Omega shifts into his double flamethrower pattern, and the trick to dodging this is to first dodge out of the area where the initial flame lands, and then as soon as he sweeps into the second flamethrower area, dodge back into the area that you just left. So if you're quick with this, you'll avoid both the flame waves and put yourself in position to immediately counter. And in the clip below, you can see me do this exactly. I dodge through the pattern and then punish with a clean standard shot. So this is another habit that you need to get done, because the way you're gonna get really good at this hunt is that if Omega does X, I will do Y, and you need to have a bunch of options that you do that are safe, that are tested, so you can just execute. So in the next clip below, pay attention to my movement after I damage Omega and notice that I'm not staying directly in front of him, because as a DPS player, it's very dangerous to sit in front of Omega because of his charge attacks. They come out very fast and can easily lead to a cart if you're not careful. So after landing your damage, make sure you're shifting your position slightly to the side, just enough to stay aggressive but not stuck in his, into his like charge threat range. And furthermore, in the clip below, you can also see what I'm really talking about when I talk about light bowgun's mobility, because I start dealing damage with a standard attack, then I immediately sidestep into a slide, and that movement not only closes the distance and keeps the pressure on Omega, but also reloads my weapon thanks to evade reloading, which is a skill that we're running thanks to the Rebel Cannon gun that we have. So in essence, the light bowgun's playstyle is that your movement is constantly doubling as offense and defense, and reload management all at once. It's a very important move. So after that, Omega launches the Mortar Fire. So to dodge this, we need to chain our movement by first sidestepping and then slide, and then finally a standard roll to get completely out of the blast zone. So after you do a slide, your next dodge is going to be a roll. So that's how the segment goes: sidestep, slide, roll. That three-step movement is what you're going to do to be able to get out of Omega's threat range and basically disengage. All right, now so after dodging the Mortar Fire, Omega goes into his Rocket Punch. So the key here is that whenever Omega uses Rocket Punches, you need to get aggressive immediately. So close the distance and focus down his forelegs, and then make sure that you're targeting the same foreleg consistently instead of switching body parts, because that's how you're going to optimize damage and optimize the chances of a wound popping up. And in the clip below that, you're going to see that when I fire a round, I sidestep and then fire another one. And then basically the sidestep is doing a double duty for me because it lets me microspace while still keeping pressure on Omega. And when I slow down on the footage below, you can see just how close the Rocket Fist came to hitting me. And those tiny sidesteps really create the opportunities to be able to damage Omega while keeping safe, and they're very important. So that's why microspacing is one of the most important habits to drill with light bowgun, but it's something that you're going to do instinctually, but it's good to be able to see a visual of that right now. So now Omega brings out his Larboard wave cannon, and the moment you see this, you need to back off immediately. So to dodge this cleanly, we chain our movements like we talked about before: sidestep first, then slide, and finally roll to get completely out of the beam. All you do is just spam X and you're going to be doing those animations, but it's sidestep, slide, and then finally roll. So this attack is basically a huge threat, so never try to get greedy here. The priority is survival, and honestly, I know there's some other ways you can dodge this move. I would just spam the roll and just get out of there. So now that I'm far away from Omega after dodging a Larboard wave cannon, I swap to adhesive ammo and fire into his weak spot. And this is honestly a good compromise because you don't always have to roll right back in for spread damage. Instead, this gives you guaranteed DPS while you're forced to disengage. So even while we're playing safe, I'm still making sure to land those shots on the forelegs, since that's the body part that we always want to prioritize for damage focus. But yeah, whenever you're forced to disengage like that, whenever you're forced to run away and like be far away from Omega, this is the best time to load your adhesive ammo, because you basically make up for the loss of DPS with DPS over time, because the adhesive ammo is like, it basically is going to take over time and lead to explosive damage. And on top of this is a very specific use case, but it's really important because we're talking about optimization. This is one of the only times that it is probably necessary for you to switch to adhesive ammo, because switching to adhesive ammo under any other circumstances is just not ideal, because it's just better for you to use your spread shot into charge shot to deal more damage. But because we're not in spread range, it's better to activate our adhesive ammo now. So do you understand the logic of that? Like, we're talking about micro optimizations, and these micro optimizations lead to more DPS and a better hunt result for us. So a habit like this is very nuanced, and it's something that you would instinctually play, like instinctually learn and do by habit after many attempts against Savage Omega. But the good thing about this video is that all of those optimizations, I'm showing them to you right now, so you can see it and we can discuss it. And also, like, this is a community effort as well. A lot of the tips that I'm showing you are like tips and optimizations that my audience has made in these videos. So like, I'm gonna actually put it on the screen right now, like a lot of the comments in the past few videos that I've made. So our NPC tank manages to break a wound on Omega, which topples him and also grants us a shield. And this shield lets the Lance user go all in without worrying about blocking. But more importantly, it gives us an amazing opportunity to deal damage safely. And here I'm using charge shot. So to perform this, if you just hold the fire, if you hold fire and then press circle, you'll be able to perform the charge shot. And this attack hits hard, and this is gonna be your main damage dealer when it comes to dealing damage to Omega. To be able to kill him fast, you need to do the charge shot. But the charge shot is inherently risky because it has like some end lag. But you need to do that. So you're gonna be able to. The more you play, you're going to be able to know what your openings are to do that. But I'll tell you right now, you will not be able to complete this quest if you are not using charge shot. If you're just playing it safe and using sidestep, you will not finish this quest fast enough. So you'll be evading constantly in this fight, whether you're trying to stay in critical distance or you're dodging attacks or reloading your weapon. But even if Omega isn't directly targeting you, you still need to be careful and try not to slide carelessly or risk getting clipped by collateral damage or stray hitboxes that weren't even aimed for you. So every movement has to be intentional. That's why, that's how you're gonna be able to survive while keeping your DPS consistent. So whenever the micro Omegas spawn, don't waste your time targeting them, because your main focus is still DPS on Omega. Attacking the micros does not push the hunt forward. It just drags things out. The best way you can help your teammates is by keeping your damage consistent and not dying. So just do that. But I do feel that it's important to tell you that the blue Omega micros, the ones that shine, killing those are the ones that are going to grant the shields. So I think that's better for your melee users to try to accomplish. Alright, so there are moments in the fight where you'll need to weave through attacks using the light bowgun's agility. So here Omega uses his atomic laser attack, and these beams have a slow startup, which gives you the time to read the angle and find the gap. So the first sidestep is crucial, because after that you have to make a quick decision about what your direction course is, basically, or like what your dodge course is. And what I mean by dodge course, I mean like what angle are you going to take to dodge. So look for the opening, commit to it, and slide or roll through the gap. So this is where the light bowgun's mobility really shines, and why it outpaces the heavy bowgun in a lot of these endgame matchups, because you're not just running away, you're weaving through Omega's attacks and staying on the offense. So after completing area 1, we're going to be entering into area 2. So whoever enters into area 2 first is going to be targeted by Omega. So in the clip that we're about to see soon, Omega could have caught us with the mortar fire attack that he was about to do. Luckily, we weren't hit because we didn't enter into the area immediately. But whenever you're entering into a new area, before you jump in, just pause for a second and look what Omega is doing to make sure you don't get caught in one of the AoE attacks that he's doing. And next, as soon as you enter into that area after there's no AoE there to hurt you, use your wing motif to get some free damage, because Omega will always open up with mustard bomb, or usually end up with open up with mustard bomb on the first player that enters, which means you're completely safe to land the attack before the fight fully resumes. Alright, so now our Insect Glaive user manages to mount Omega, which is a huge advantage for us, because whenever a mount happens, your job is to pour as much DPS into the front, into the forelegs as much as possible while Omega is locked down. And unfortunately, this is where we take our first hit of the entire hunt. And it's basically from the ice attack that Omega is able to do. And this is a new attack that comes with the Savage version of Omega. But luckily, our Hunting Horn is able to heal us. Another thing too is that to escape this attack, you need to bring Cleanser. So eventually Omega is going to target you, and when that happens, there are a few things you need to do immediately. The first thing you need to do is sheath your weapon as soon as possible. The second thing is you need to open up your item slot menu and scroll to Farcaster, and you can see me doing that in the clip below. And the third is to get your sacred or your mount, like basically get on your mount. And if you watch my previous video on spread light bowgun on the normal Omega, you'll remember that one of the two concepts that I talked about is that when Omega aggroes you, your priority is survival, where you run until the aggro shifts. So that first video was essentially a tutorial where one hunter with 3 NPCs is more than enough to take down normal Omega with no issues. But Savage Omega, when you have your real party is on a different level, and the margin of error is so small that everything that you've practiced in the normal fight now has to be executed perfectly. And that's why this video is way more advanced and more detailed than the original. Alright, so this is how you deal with the aggro. So first, having aggro isn't always bad because once Omega locks onto you, you can lead him into the environmental traps and stack on extra damage. But don't get too comfortable because, even though you're on your mount, you're still in danger. And for example, Omega's charge attack is a gap closer that can absolutely end your run if you're not careful. And that's why you always carry a Farcaster, because in these situations where you simply can't dodge or outrun his attacks, and your only safe option is to Farcast back to camp, you need to take that. So in this clip, we barely avoid getting clipped, and because of that, we're able to stay in the fight and keep applying DPS. And we keep our item selection on Farcaster so it's ready to use instantly, because survival comes first. And here's the reward, because when we punish his laser attack with Motif, we're able to deal 1,000 points of damage. So even though we're on the defensive, for a bit, we're able to make up the DPS by recognizing the right windows and using the right tools. So even when you're on your sacred, you're not safe, and that's because Omega's atomic rays are a huge threat and you have to dodge them. So if you don't, he can knock you down, then immediately follow up with a charge attack or his laser beam attack. And even if you dodge that, he can still finish off with the any of his AoE options and projectiles in his kit. So being on your sacred gives you mobility, but it doesn't mean you're invincible. You still have to respect his moveset and dodge smartly. And as you can see in the clip below, we're gonna be dodging it by running away from the laser and then just running through the gaps. So unfortunately, we do end up getting clipped by Omega's charge attack, but I basically want you to notice something very important. I was at full health before this attack, and I was almost one shot. And the only reason I survived was because I had all 3 of my defense buffs active, and I put those buffs on whenever I was moving towards area 2. So this is why preparation is everything. Buffing up isn't optional. It is the difference between surviving a mistake or losing the entire run. And this is a good reason why having a support in your team is really important, because our Hunting Horn player heals us here, and this single moment shows why teamwork is so important in this matchup. Because if you're trying to do everything by yourself, it's not really going to get you far, because in this fight the roles need to be clear and defined. You need someone who's pure DPS to bring the firepower that actually whittles down Omega's health. That's our job. But also, you need players who can sustain the team, making sure that one mistake doesn't lead to a cart. That's exactly what the Hunting Horn player is doing here, and he's doing it perfectly. And in Savage Omega mode, or in Savage Omega, the hunt, teamwork is everything. Without it, the margin of error is just too small to succeed. Alright, so now let's talk about area 3 in the DPS phase. So whenever you enter into this area, make sure you reapply all your buffs. And then what happened earlier with those charge attacks should really give you the motivation that you really need to use your buffs and always consume them. You never want to skip them. Alright, so now let's talk about Farcaster. So in this clip, I sheath my weapon before Omega's attack. I do this instinctually because I just know the attack is coming. So it ended up being the correct choice, because I was able to Farcaster out of that attack that probably would have killed me or led to my death. And here's the takeaway. Sometimes you have to sacrifice a few, maybe 30 or 40 seconds of DPS where you have to come back to camp to guarantee survival. Losing damage is fine, but losing an entire run because you ran out of carts, it means you are not going to have a chance of succeeding. That's why Farcaster is such an important tool in this fight, especially as a DPS player. Alright, so let's talk about the Nerscylla section. So I'm going to explain it very slowly, step by step, so it makes sense. So, once Nerscylla enters the fight, immediately get on your mount and switch to your Paralysis light bowgun. This setup gives you control over the fight by locking Nerscylla down, which is especially important in the chaotic multi-monster battle that we're about to experience. So, again, first step, Paralysis shots. 2 shots with your Paralysis light bowgun should be enough to lock Nerscylla down in place. That quick stun gives your team a safe opening to reset and reposition before shifting focus back to Omega. Next, while you're still mounted, switch back to your Rebel Cannon light bowgun and dismount, because at this point, Nerscylla is paralyzed, so your job is to get back onto Omega with your main damage setup. Third, once you're dismounted and you have your Rebel Cannon light bowgun equipped, make sure you put on your Rocksteady Mantle. This is really important because in this phase, Nerscylla lands attacks very frequently and you don't want to get interrupted. Our priority here is to maximize DPS, and Rocksteady Mantle makes sure that we don't get interrupted even if Nerscylla does land an attack on us. So the good news is that our Insect Glaive player and our Hunting Horn player are able to activate the endemic life that's around here, which leads to Omega getting paralyzed again. But be careful because this endemic life can also paralyze us as well. So this kind of coordination is huge, and it stacks up over time to a successful hunt. So the next thing is that basically Nerscylla targets another teammate, which means that we can play super aggressively and unload as much damage as we want. And with with him paralyzed again, we were able to deal a lot of damage already. And you're going to see exactly why Rocksteady Mantle is so important here, because if we get hit, we don't get interrupted, and our health is not a big concern because our Hunting Horn player is covering our health and our heals. What matters the most is avoiding hit stun so we can keep pushing DPS without losing momentum. So finally, Nerscylla finally breaks through my Rocksteady Mantle, and I'm left on the brink of death. This is the second time I'm almost died in this hunt, but even so, we have already done enough damage to close it out and survive the DPS phase. And what made the difference was that everyone fulfilled their roles perfectly, with coordination, good timing, and constant support. So we were able to execute this phase well, and even then, we still barely scraped by. And that's the lesson that I want you to take from this clip. Even though you're the DPS of this team and you have all this pressure to do DPS, I'm the damage dealer. But ironically, it was my teammates who finished the job while I was face planted barely alive. That's Savage Omega. Victory comes from teamwork, not just raw damage. Alright, and to wrap it up, Area 4 is where we're going to be using Farcaster the most, and in this clip, Omega launches his MRV missiles, and I get knocked down because I accidentally missed input and basically shot my gun, which put me in end lag, so I couldn't dodge the attack. But my teammate heals me while I'm still vulnerable. Again, this is another example of why teamwork is so important, because you simply can't do everything by yourself. And at this point, we only had one cart left, and if that missile had connected, I'm pretty sure it would have been game over. So that's why Farcaster is so valuable in Area 4. It's a tool that lets you escape these deadly situations that may end your run. And, we keep playing clean, and eventually we finish the fight, completing Savage Omega. So that's honestly the entire process in a nutshell. Seriously, save yourself the headache and just use this video to guide you. Learning all the small nuances over and over through trial and error is really brutal. So, I've already done the hard part, so just copy the build, follow the strategies, and use the walkthrough to farm Savage Omega without all the frustration. Alright, now I'm going to show you the equipment and decorations for you to be able to copy this build. Alright, so let me show you how to craft the Paralysis light bowgun. So these are all the materials, and these are the bowgun mods. Alright, and now for this is the equipment and decorations, just like all the things you need to be able to copy this build. Alright guys, I hope this video helped. If you have any optimizations or you notice things that could have been done better, put it in the comment section, because this is a community effort. A lot of the tips that you're seeing here were crowdsourced by a lot of my audience. So really open discussion is really welcome, and let's have conversations, because we have to figure this out together as a community. All right guys, take care, good luck out there, and have fun.